So, what is social media marketing? Well, we can view it in a few different ways. Um, One is the division between organic and paid social media marketing. Another is to view it sort of distinction between professional and personal social media marketing. So we'll be talking about sort of all of these in some sense today. So the organic and paid division is the same sort of as in search engine marketing. So remember we had search engine optimization and then we had search engine advertising. So this division generally applies to sort of, it's a good division for understanding digital marketing overall, that we have some organic means where we are doing some labor, but we are not paying for visibility. And then we have the paid ones where we basically just buy the visibility for our offering. So in organic sense, we can have a company generated content. So this is something we would publish in Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, any of the social media platforms. And then of course we have user generated content. So user generated content is hugely important because on the one hand, we can use it sort of as a market intelligence material. So to we should monitor our brand, our what is talked about us online in terms of reviews, in terms of Twitter or X, in terms of any public communication that people have and what they post about us. And then on the other hand, yeah, we can try to boost such conversations and have people generate authentic content about us. So this is related to also to word of mouth, which is very powerful. So as peers recommend products or services to one another, that has a stronger effect than if the recommendation or the message is coming from the company. So, and then in the paid social media marketing, we have social advertising, and this means we can boost the posts that we are doing to gain extra visibility. And this is nowadays pretty much a norm for many companies. We have to boost or we have to pay for the visibility in social media unless we are sort of very, very popular, which very few companies are. Or then we can have, just like in the case of Google Shopping ads, we can, for example, Facebook has similar specification for the product feeds. So we can connect a product feed into our campaigns and promote the products directly. So this is often the more feasible and better performing strategy for companies that sell products online. So e-commerce, the product feed campaigns would be more profitable. So a lot of this advertising works similarly to Google Ads in terms of the features, the functionalities, and the ideas, which is because indeed Facebook has copied a lot of features and principles from Google Ads and then others as well. So again, TikTok, X ads, those are working in a very much same way as Google Ads. And in paid social media marketing, we also have influencer marketing. So this is collaboration with creators or influencers. There are different terms being used, but creator and influencer is pretty much synonymous. And yeah, then the division between professional and personal social media marketing. So professional social media marketing is managing company pages and profiles and posting on them, updating the cover pages and descriptions and so on and so on. And then the personal one is about your own personal branding. How do you present yourself online? How do you uh, sort of distinguish yourself as a professional in a specific field? So this is quite becoming quite important nowadays um, for recruitment, for career development and purposes like that. And then there's a concept that's related to that, which is impression management, that basically sort of means that um, it's wise to manage the visibility or manage the material that people find about you in Google or Facebook or wherever, because even though legally in many countries recruiters might not be allowed to Google people when they are recruiting them, still they do. And it's pretty much impossible to stop them, because who will know of this activity, right? So recruiters do it. So this impression management is a key component in kind of this personal level social media marketing. And these two fields, the professional and personal, are somehow mixed in the concept of employee advocacy. So we can think of all the employees in a company as possible advocates, so brand advocates or employee advocates that are basically possibly sharing our content, possibly posting about us as a company, and therefore they could be sort of advocates that are, and then we would have this, peer effect or word of mouth effect, which is stronger than just company originated messaging. So there are some programs, some companies have employee advocacy programs that encourage people to post and share company content, and there might be some incentives there. And designing such programs is tricky, because we have this personal identity on social media and then we have professional identity, and on the other hand it's also that often these activities would take place not during working hours but off working hours. So there are practical and let's say ethical and also possibly some legal implications, but still it is a possibility, especially if we have, even if we have a small organization, often the key members do actively publish things in LinkedIn, for example, or even in other social media about company uh, content from time to time. But then if we have a very big organization with thousands of employees, this could be seen as sort of like social media army in a way. But yeah, like I said, the designing of those programs can be tricky. Okay, so social media management, it might appear simple and like many things that look easy and simple. Well, it's not actually difficult to do posting and such things, but if you want really performance out of it, then uh, there's a lot under the hood or under the surface that has to be considered, from strategic planning to measurement and sort of integration with the broader business goals. So often the companies that whose posting looks very simple, it's like sort of like a fallacy, and we need to analyze more deeply. Okay, now I can see what they're doing here, and why does it work? Because if you just look at it from the surface, it makes sense and it's very logical. But to really understand how they were able to create that winning position requires further analysis and understanding, because competition is very hard, and those companies that do well on social media is not by accident, but there is a lot of thought under it. So here are some questions to consider from a business perspective in terms of social management, social media management. But these a lot of these themes are covered in the practitioner videos. So many of these are tactical and operational questions like frequency, type of content to publish, and so on. So companies often define content calendars. They define responsibles. So there can be one person responsible for all the social media channels, or then there can be channel specific manager. One is in charge of Instagram and another one is in charge of Facebook. Or it can be based on content type, where someone is charge of the video platforms, for example, TikTok, YouTube, and another person is in charge of more text-oriented channels like uh, mm, uh, Twitter or X and Facebook. So there are different ways to organize the collaboration. I'll be talking a bit more about the requirements for being competitive nowadays. But yeah, this is to show that there are a lot of considerations when we craft the strategy and when we craft the policy of who creates content on what principles and who distributes it, and then how it is eventually monitored, the performance. And more broadly speaking, there are, of course, different objectives, different marketing objectives that social media is aiming for. Just a second, I need to let the cat. Sorry about that. She wanted out and scratching, hard to focus. So these objectives, brand building is an obvious one, and this is sort of a standard use case for social media marketing. We want to appear, we want to be present, and we want people to notice our content. So this is important for all kinds of stakeholders in the ecosystem, not only the customers, but if we have collaborators or so on. So visibility and how you present the company, it affects a lot, and especially in reputation intensive fields, which are many. And sales is another one. So there's a debate over how much of an effect social media has on sales, but nowadays it's clearly shifting to sort of like evidence of social media affecting sales a lot. So it's a major driver for sales. In B2C, so in consumer marketing, we speak of social commerce, and in B2B or enterprise sales, we call it social selling. So this is when the salespeople are, well, if you want to just characterize it very shortly, it's the salespeople actively using LinkedIn and other platforms to contact people and also to produce content related to the to the industry. And then, as I mentioned, gathering customer insights. So these can be used for product development. So if you're, for example, a company like manufacturing company or a service company, any type of company, people might complain about Tesla's batteries or McDonald's prices or product services. Then there can be thousands and thousands of those messages. So social media marketing should also be in charge of somehow actively harvesting that voice of consumers, and then using data mining and analysis techniques to produce some insights that then can be used by other departments of the company. For example, bringing customer pain points into the attention of product development, engineering, or such departments, and then also taking actions, possibly providing solutions and interventions there to the people that are struggling with our products or services. So it's a two-way operation that this social media enables, not only broadcasting about us, but also to listen and to intervene when needed. So that is called social media monitoring. So companies, there are various tools where you can input your brand terms, and then those tools monitor social media and can send you alerts when your company is being notified. So then you can take action if you have decided to do so. So this, of course, it's not, as we discussed, only the tool. The tool is not the solution. The tool is just something that enables our process, and our process needs to support our strategy, our, let's say, objectives, and our objectives need to support our strategy. So it's not a random doing, just somebody deciding something, but there needs to be a plan and strategy behind it. Otherwise it's really hard to effectively manage, especially brands that have heavy social media activity. And then internal communication, of course, nowadays we use WhatsApp groups, for example, for internal communication in the company. And also, especially WhatsApp commerce has become more prominent. So companies offer now a channel for customers who don't want to call, for example. For example, if you buy a car, then nowadays, it wasn't the case 10 years ago, but nowadays you can very easily contact the salespeople via WhatsApp, and even in late nights, late evenings, they respond to you quite quickly. And the car can be anywhere in Finland, and they can demonstrate you through video call how it looks like, and so on and so on, and then they can deliver it for test drive to your location and so on. So these kind of channels can lower the barrier of customer contacting you, which is important. So uh, that's why these chat-based tools like WhatsApp are now, they're becoming a norm in many industries. For companies, it also poses challenges, because if we need to sort of man the WhatsApp, uh, our WhatsApp profile, we need to man the Messenger account and so on. So we need more staff who is available. And then there are also these chat options on the website that need to be manned. So somebody needs to be there. And again, a customer might have a need to contact late in the evening. So there are different solutions that you can see. There are some chat systems are not available. They say we are not here. And then it's obviously worse service compared to the competitor who has a guy there willing to answer your questions even late at night. So if you want to cater to the maximum needs of people, you have to consider that a lot of people might be working during daytime and handle some purchases during evening time, and or vice versa, very early in the morning. So availability is sort of like becoming a competitive factor in this kind of social commerce. And then customer service. So again, I mentioned that we can observe when things have gone wrong. So people complain. They might, sort of secretly wish that the company contacts them, or maybe not even secretly, but sometimes they tag the company, and they expect, of course, if they tag the company, they expect a response. So then we need to have someone there, and we need to be ready to respond very quickly. And sometimes, because the discussion can, you know, Finnair does something like a bad mistake and someone tags the Finnair in LinkedIn, and where is the Finnair representative? Nowhere. But the other people are already commenting, yeah, this is typical, I had the same problem, and a lot of discussion gets going, and Finnair is slow to respond because they are not actively monitoring. So then their chances of kind of intervening and um, providing this service recovery are worse than if they were sort of more agile with the monitoring. So there are good and bad examples of this. A good example is from the Verkkokauppiaat group in Facebook, which is a e-commerce sellers group. And then often people complain about the workings of Finnish postal office, Posti. And then the Posti representative is, generally speaking, I've seen them respond very quickly to the complaints, and then they promise to find out and do something about it. So there are good and bad examples, but the customer service element of social media is a very, very important use case. So again, we see it's much more than just advertising, and it really requires like a lot of labor, a lot of effort to run this social media operation. So I mentioned earlier that there is like there's a question, should we be there and why should we be there, and there are maybe at least two alternative like maxims or theorems or propositions here. So one is the conversion maxim. So this means that we are there to generate revenue, we are to make sales. So we don't care that much about how many likes we get or such metrics that are more like vanity metrics, and we are just hardcore focused on how can we show the effect, the return on investment of all these efforts. So basically we don't even want to be perfect, and if it doesn't really support us very strongly, we wouldn't be posting anything. We might just do social media advertising on Facebook directly, advertising our product feed, but in terms of organic stuff, we are not touching it because we cannot see the direct return. So there can be that kind of view or perspective to social media. There's also an alternative perspective, which is the networking maxim. So it means that, yeah, the nature of social media is less commercial. It's not strictly speaking a marketplace. It's an environment where people come to meet others and engage in dialogue, and maybe to discover some new products in the process, but that's not the main goal of why they are using social media. So this means that yeah, companies should have a different perspective, and a lot of this idea is kind of infused in the concept of social selling. And so if you are going into B2B sales at some point, I definitely encourage you to learn more about the concept of social selling, because it's an useful idea, and many of the top salespeople nowadays are very active in LinkedIn, and sort of that helps them to grow their own brand, but at the same time it provides benefits for the company they're working for. So the social selling is a strong driver, and it's based on networking and based on the idea that we try to be helpful to people even though it doesn't directly result in sales. So we are not all the time pushing for our product and pushing our sales, but we are more broadly interested in people's problems in the space we are working at. And sometimes we might even recommend a competitor if we were not available or if we didn't have that specific solution. So that's something that's sort of unheard of in like normal business, right? We never recommend a competitor. But in social selling, you can, because that's the idea, that you're there to help others give them a hand. And of course, generally speaking, you are trying to make sales for your own company because your company has a good solution. And when you can see the opportunity that, okay, you're solving someone's problem, then there's nothing wrong with genuinely recommending your own solution because it is truly a good solution for them. So yeah, this is a nice way of thinking, and it's also very well aligned that we're not just trying to push something that we don't believe in, but actually we also choose companies as when we are looking for job that we believe in, and then it's easier for us to also sell something we believe in personally. So yeah, but there is this concept of potential disconnect, and the sort of what I just said about social selling and networking. And so that's one extreme, and especially in B2B, sort of I think a good approach, a modern approach. But in consumer marketing or B2C, then you could see different approaches, how much you want to be social and how much of that will actually work versus you just running the ads there. That is a lot, I think, trickier dilemma at the moment. And yeah, it's partly due to this drift of why people use social media. And there's one interesting twist to this, which is that sometimes in the reports, this is an older report, already 12 years old, but you would get similar reports nowadays, even if you look at Google Analytics data for almost any company, it looks like social media is kind of waste of time apart from the advertising aspect of it. But then we have because just the numbers are showing that it's not compared to Google Ads, for example. For example, or organic Google traffic conversion is much lower, and the number of amount of traffic tends to be also very much smaller. But the interesting thing is that when we look at if people actually use or what they say, what they tell about their behavior, then in surveys they say that social media affects their purchase decisions. And that's also common sense, right? If you think about your own purchase behavior, for sure, social media affects. I can easily admit that many of my purchases have been like influenced by social media or even directly caused it. So there's a drift between what we can observe in analytic systems and what seems to be the common sense. And that's partly, I would say, it's due to this measurement fallacy that, in fact, when I make the purchase decision based on something I see in social media, there might not be a digital footprint. There might not be evidence. So then if we are too strictly looking at conversion tracking only based on clicks and only based on the strong observed evidence, then much of the actual influence and effect is not accounted for. So this is a big problem for many companies and brands, because then as a consequence they might cut down on social media activities that actually do influence people's behavior. So again, we are at the stage of kind of like at the historical stage. I guess I will talk more about it next week in the analytics lecture, but we are in the stage where previously we didn't think it was possible to measure everything. Like in the early days of advertising in the 1920s, there's famous dilemma, Wanamaker's dilemma, that 50% of your ads are bringing revenue, but which 50%? So that means we cannot know, we cannot specifically measure, and we just need to trust that it sort of works. But then there was an idea in the early days of digital marketing, or even back like 10 years ago, that now Vanamaker's dilemma has been resolved because we can track everything. Can track the visitor, we can know what they do on the website, and we know if a purchase happens, right? But interestingly, now the shift is going back to the 1920s, literally 100 years ago, in admitting that in fact we cannot track everything. And there's a lot that we cannot track. And it's becoming even harder to track with the privacy issues and the company's strategic behaviors of them not sharing data between one another. So we cannot build a comprehensive customer journey. There's no tool that we could actually use to make this direct, really accurate portrayal of where people went. So this might affect social media disproportionately, and it might show that results are worse than what they actually are. We'll be talking about this marketing mix modeling next week more. That's one tactic, actually technique to overcome that by adjusting for sort of like the unobserved effects. So social media characteristics, well, you already basically have a understanding, but what it is about, it's content showing in various feeds. So feed is a key component. People scroll the feeds, and then people can make decisions on the people and pages who they follow or subscribe to, and then they can explicitly tell about their sort of preferences through that, the follows, and by clicking basically. But they also give indirect cues by just every time you scroll past something and you don't follow, that's a signal that, okay, this content was not interesting. So also inaction and this kind of implicit signals affect how then newsfeed algorithms make decisions. And there is generally like a low cost for some small actions like liking and sharing. It's relatively, a lot of it happens, but it doesn't necessarily translate into business outcomes. And also there are interesting cultural differences in how people like and share content, and also how they portray themselves in social media. Like for example, in the Middle East and North Africa region, they generally don't have their own face in their social media profile. When in Facebook or LinkedIn, they just might use some kind of picture there, because according to the cultural norms, it's not sort of um, uh, I wouldn't say acceptable, but not preferable to show your face in social media. So social media feeds are hyper competitive environments. So we can see here a similarity to Google's ranking problem. So just like Google had, you remember the example of millions of possible web pages to choose from for a given query. Here, the thing is the same. You have among all the person's friends and pages that they follow, and then among actually all the content that's being now created within a platform, this newsfeed algorithm is trying to pick the ones you are most interested in and then sort them in or rank them in order of preference to maximize your engagement, so that you stay basically logged in for as long as possible, scrolling and consuming their content. So that's what they are trying to do. And there's some information that possibly you could see up to 1,500 posts per day, and this is just based on sort of your friends and your connections. But then, like I said, if we generalize to the available number of or amount of posts there, it will be huge in millions for any kind of dominant platform nowadays. So that's similar to Google's search ranking problem. All social media platforms face this similar ranking problem, and they solve it also a little bit in similar ways. We are going to talk about that. But there's another similarity, which is organic and paid. So just like search engine result pages have the sponsored section and the organic section, so is the news. So has the newsfeed. So newsfeed has organic posts and then paid posts or sponsored posts, and those are the ads. And always the easiest uh, way for marketers is not to try organic optimization, but to buy the visibility. So if you have the funds, that's generally the easiest way. You just buy the visibility. That doesn't mean you don't have to make the content interesting, because as we discussed last time, there's a component on relevance or quality that affects your bid in the ad auctions. And that's the same idea in search advertising and social advertising. So you cannot sort of, or let's say if you want to have a lot of visibility, but you have really crappy ads, you have to pay much more than if you had good and engaging ads. So basically the objective is always the same, that your ads should be engaging and people should basically want to click or watch them, depending a bit on the ad type. So kysymys. Question, how it is possible that yeah, it's possible that yeah, Facebook monitors indeed your content. Okay, there is also, if you are talking about discussions like in what is known as hidden social media, which is like Messenger, for example, then advertisers cannot see that, but it is I'm not 100% sure because I haven't checked the terms of service, but I assume that Facebook could use that information in sort of like an um, uh, anonymized way, in which that, let's say you talk about something and then now you are categorized into an interest audience, right? So advertiser cannot see that, okay, it was Sunny who is likes, cars, for example, but they just see there's a huge audience of people who like cars. So it's not like they are tracking you individual, but all the people who like cars then might see the ads on cars, and you're just one of those. So it's sort of like, it sounds very creepy, but if we always remember that we become a part of the group and not like we are not individually singled out to like be the unique people that see an ad or try to be influenced. So that can be one reason for this. There can also be suddenly this selective attention effect, which is sort of like in psychology they call it priming, where you have just talked about something, so now you're more likely to observe it in your feed because it's in your mind. So if you didn't talk about it, maybe there would still be the same content, but you would be just scrolling and not paying much attention to it. But because you have it on the top of your mind, now you're more likely to observe it. So it's really hard to say exact reasons behind it, but these are possible reasons. And also then you asked if the search engines are listening. Search engines are also listening, so this you could have a visitor to the website from Google, and then you could target that Facebook that person in Facebook with the retargeting, right? So you can do that. We can drive traffic, and there's a pixel on our website that's tracking also it's pixel from Facebook. So when you now go to Facebook, you are part of the audience, and now we can show you ads. So this retargeting can sort of happen also between channels. So also again similar to Google, we don't know exactly how Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or any social media platform does the ranking. So the exact recipe is a secret. But here are some sort of possible ranking signals. So I mean, if you are closer to the person who's posting on social media, like you have frequent encounters with them, you are more likely to see their posts. um, how much if there's a post you haven't seen earlier but it has received a lot of likes and shares, so it has strong engagement, again it's likely more likely to appear in your feed. Then if some post has negative feedback, it's less likely to appear, so it's sort of faded away. And then there's the edge rank, which is in the next slide, and engagement rate, which is sort of after that. So here's a simple simplification of the edge rank. So you remember Google's primary algorithm was called PageRank. So this is early, and that was early version, right? 1998 published. So this is similar. This is early version Facebook's algorithm. It's called EdgeRank. And so edge is a term from graph theory. So edge means a post. And then so you have these components here. Basically, in this kind of formulas, there are weights and factors that then are somehow computed with, by multiplication or pluses, minuses, depends, often multiplication. And so here is relationship between the person who posts and potential recipient. So I mentioned in the previous slide, for example, if you have liked the person's posts recently, you're more likely to see them. So that can be a factor. But if we then average over a longer period of time, your relationship with all your friends, like in terms of how many times you have liked their post. So we can calculate a ratio of that. And then that ratio can now be a quantitative score, which can be one component in the formula when we calculate sort of the probability or the score for each candidate post to appear in your own feed. Content type, again, this if they have if they have a content type, through this, Facebook can quickly adjust something. So if they want in their algorithm that, okay, videos are a big thing, like at some point they start being big thing, so they can just increase the weight of the video content type. So now automatically in millions and millions of feeds will now start appearing more videos. So this is how they can adjust the visibility of different content types. And then decay, so there will be for sure quite strong expiry of content, because social media content is sort of similar to news, where it's relevant today but less relevant tomorrow. So often after a week you are not anymore seeing that post appearing, or let's say it will drop the number of, like, the age affects a lot the visibility. So the older the post gets, the less likely it's shown to people. So and the number of followers or likes is often it was like previously something that companies aimed for, so they wanted to increase the like count and the follower count. It's kind of a useless thing. It's kind of like, one of these vanity metrics that it looks impressive, but actually in terms of results and in terms of visibility, it can be even counterproductive, because if you have a lot of followers and they are not really following you because of interest, but for example, to win some prizes, then they are less likely to convert. But also then when you are starting to post something else than prizes, then they are not engaging with your content. So that actually brings your visibility down. So in that case, it would have made sense to have a smaller audience, which is more engaged, because your engagement rate would be higher, and now your organic visibility would also be higher. So in some cases, it can actually harm your audience if they are not interested um, in what you're really selling. Of course, it's the opposite. If they really are passionate, then that's a really good thing, because that causes more engagement and stronger virality for your content. Um, but yeah, you have to be if you're building an audience or followership, you have to really try to get those people that really like what you're doing and are not there out of secondary reasons, like winning just some prizes from competitions. So be very careful in how you build the audience, because the number um, can either mean a good thing or a bad thing. And then engagement. So I already mentioned engagement as important factor. So it is much more important than the number of followers, for example. So here's an example formula. So basically how many likes, clicks, comments, share. So there can be hierarchy in the algorithm of the social media platform, in that maybe because like is super easy, maybe they appreciate it less than a comment. Comment shows greater effort and those events are rarer. So maybe it has a higher weight. And then sharing maybe even more important signal, because now a person is really appreciating this. So if a content gets a lot of shares and comments, it is more likely to be, or it should be pushed higher than a content that has fewer shares and comments. And these are all sort of always relative to how many people gets to see the post. So you can, in the case of Google, also they do this kind of optimization where they show some ad for a small group of people, maybe only 100 people sees it, and then they very quickly calculate how many take action, right? And then they make that determination very quickly. Okay, shows promising, let's increase now from in the case of social media, it's increased from 100 people to 1,000 people, and let's see if it still stays high engagement. Oh, it does. Okay, let's go to 10,000 people. Oh, it's still an engagement even increasing. Okay, let's go to million people. That kind of logic where they are using their algorithm is using smaller subsets of the audience to test if engagement is working. And this is something that's sort of attributed as a success factor for TikTok, because in Facebook's case, the candidate content that people see originates largely from their connections. So the people they follow and the pages, the organizations they follow. So that limits a lot, because there might be something bigger going on, and then that limits a lot. So in the case of TikTok, they are doing it very differently. So they are considering all the content in the platform as a possible pool. And then, well, everything is optimized for high engagement or high addiction. Depends on if you're a marketer or a public health professional talking about this phenomenon, but it is highly engineered to keep you sort of engaged and addicted. It tries to very quickly find your preferences. Uh, the content feeds are highly personalized. It tests different types of content. So just to quickly see, immediately if you don't like some type of content, it's switching to another theme. But as long as you like a specific theme, it keeps showing you until you indicate by your scrolling further that you lack interest, and then it very rapidly shifts. So it's very adaptive. Um, and that's part of the addictivity. And also the existing brands or players might not have a very strong um, uh, like favoritism position, so it doesn't care about how many followers you have, it just cares about how well the content does. So this gives a chance for all the content. It's more sort of democratic, and again, it's more adaptive, because no matter who created the content, if it becomes very popular, it can spread very quickly, regardless of the social graph behind the network. And then, yeah, of course, the short video format, which makes it so that they can more quickly learn about you, right? If the content takes a long time to read or watch, it takes the algorithm longer to learn if you like it or not. But the short video is perfect for addiction, because already in the first less than a second, it learns if you liked it or not. So it gathers much faster information than previous platforms. And yeah, so and then of course there are features that drive virality, like these all kinds of trends and reusable contents and stuff like that. That is really not those are features of the platform. They're not features of the algorithm, and they are features that sort of affect the mind of people through this meme or meme logic, that people like to copy, pieces of content, copy pieces of ideas, and then they replicate that. So that this logic is successfully implemented in TikTok, in that people really want to adopt the pattern and replicate the pattern. But that's a memeology pattern, or these memes that are there in the background. So it's actually a social psychology concept. So yeah, this is the thing that who designs the most addictive social media ranking algorithm then becomes more popular. And yeah, TikTok is the first one who really, or the first one that really challenged Facebook. There's interesting thing though about Facebook. This is an old study from 10 years ago, and they predict that Facebook would lose 80% of the users by 2017. And there were like historical grounds for that, because before Facebook there was MySpace, and it was only for a few years that they managed to maintain it. And then the network effects fell, and it quickly disappeared. So this is the thing with the platforms, that once they start losing their traction, they can very, very quickly become irrelevant. So there have been a lot of prognosis over the years that it will happen to Facebook, but it's remarkable that it hasn't. So it's kind of the same as last time with Google, that how come they have managed to keep their natural monopoly position for 20 years in the high tech industry, which is like you should have new innovators that radicalize the field and take over. So it's kind of similar with Facebook, although Facebook is losing some users. It is still huge, still enormous, and it hasn't gone started like disappearing. So from business perspective, it's really interesting to observe this. But yeah, these researchers made their approximation was based on some kind of growth models, so statistical models that predicted this would happen, but it clearly didn't. So Facebook was able to defy the odds, at least so far. But yeah, Facebook has some challenges, like for example, well, these are maybe more commonly also social media challenges, that people have a lot of connections, a lot of contacts, a lot of people they follow. So on average, we have this Dunbar's number that on average a person has 150 connections in their social graph, or their acquaintances and friends would roughly amount to this 150. So the feed can easily become cluttered, and it's a relevance problem, and also because people have different preferences. Maybe some would like to see more content from friends, maybe some would like to see more content from pages, and so on. So it's hard to kind of infer people's preferences from their behavior, but that's the challenge that they have. And also, in social media, we have a lot of negative side effects from the fact that it's so easy to share. We have misinformation, which is wrong information accidentally spread. Disinformation is spreading misinformation, it sort of like purposefully negative intent. Clickbait content that is sort of just driving trying to get people click, and then on the other hand, the content that just is sort of boring. So all kinds of content is now included because anyone can post with any motive. So that causes what we would say in economics, possible lemon market. So this concept was invented by Akerlöf in 1970, or published at that time, and he won a Nobel Prize for it. And it's just the idea basically that this low quality content, if we apply it to Facebook's case or social media case, low quality content erodes the trust that users have for the platform, and then the best users would leave that kind of platform, and only the worst users remain, and then they keep publishing sort of garbage, and there is a downward spiral, and the whole market turns into lemon, or this like poor. So maybe something like this is happening in now X with the Elon Musk thing. I don't know. I haven't used it in a while, so maybe it is some users are leaving it because of high toxicity and things like that. But yeah, it's interesting from business point of view how particularly Facebook, which is the classic dominant social media platform, has remained popular throughout more than a decade. And some of the strategies they have applied are is buying of competitors. For example, buying Instagram for $1 billion, which was allowed at the time. And then different things that they have done to control change their ranking algorithm. So they have been successful at that because people haven't deserted them. If they had failed, and sort of this lemon market or this nonsense content had taken over, then nobody would be using it. But just the proof is in the pudding, and just because we're using it, it sort of works. And also they have applied content moderation or hybrid content moderation, which is a combination of human moderators that Facebook has hundreds of outsourced content moderators, and then they have also machine learning algorithms to do content moderation to curb the negative content. So this is a very important part of managing the platform. And yeah, they've been able to keep people engaged and maximize the feed time. So the conclusion of the algorithm is that it's very much the same principle as we have with Google. Remember the principle user-friendly optimization. So we want to optimize for the user and not for the algorithm. So it's too simple to be true, but it is true. So we here it works more through the engagement rate, that as long as we have engaging content, we're sort of doing everything right, unless if that engagement is driven in a wrong way, but then we get penalized by the content moderation sooner or later if we do it in the wrong way. But yeah, the UFO principle applies here as well. And another twist from the platform's perspective is how much they include organic versus paid posts, and they are also, of course, strategic actors and businesses, so they want to generate revenue. So people, on the other hand, the users might not like if the feed contains too many ads, like, right? So that's evident. So what any kind of platform company needs to do is monitor the ratio between ad content and organic content and try to keep the balance of not showing too many ads, but at the same time trying to maximize their revenue. And yeah, it is quite similar to Google's case of how many ads to show versus how many organic results to show. Usually the organic results are the ones that people are actually looking for, though not always, because as we discussed, there can be informational intent and commercial intent. But here in the case, it's also a little bit similar. The user can have intent to learn or stay up to date with their friends, friends and family. But they also might have a sort of another intent of discovering interesting things. So that is again somewhat compatible with the idea of advertising and marketing, because that gives us a somewhat, some compatibility with the user's intent, which is always what we want to do in marketing. We want to be compatible with the intent instead of changing the intent, because if you're compatible with what the person is doing and what they are interested in, you are likelier to get a positive result. But if they really don't like it, they really don't want it, they really want to do something else, you have to spend a lot of time persuading them, and still you might not be able to do that. So that's why, but yeah, from advertisers or marketers' point of view, there are a couple of challenging things which always we can understand as this rented land dilemma, which is that basically, since you don't own the platform or the channel, you are totally at the mercy of the algorithm and the decisions of the platform. So a lot of the companies, for example, so I put this the law of decreasing free impressions. So it means that in any given platform, you first usually have a lot of organic visibility as the platform starts to grow and there are fewer brands in it. So you get to have more visibility, and but over time it will wane, it will decrease. So the ratio of how much like free visibility, organic visibility you get becomes lower. And this was actually very much seen in, for example, in the case of Facebook. I've seen it firsthand, because when we started with one business doing organic Facebook, we collected a lot of followers, likes there, and then we got nice organic reach. But over the years, boom, it went from having thousands and tens of thousands into having just hundreds or tens. So Facebook really squeezed uh, normal pages from it's kind of like a trick, right? But of course they never told us that, yeah, build an audience. They kind of told, right? They kind of told that build an audience and you can, spread your message to them. But they didn't promise that, it would be the case forever, for sure. But there's kind of an implicit idea there that you build an audience and it's kind of your audience, right? It's not. It's not. So we lost that audience completely. So we make a lot of effort to build the audience, but in fact, then our organic reach to that audience decreases. So we have to pay if we want to reach them going forward. This is the dynamics how it works over time. So nowadays it's similar in TikTok. You can get more reach, but um, and also the cost price, the CPM, if we talk about advertising, is lower. But over time it will change. Over time it will become harder and harder to get organic reach, and on the advertising side, the click prices or the CPM prices will climb as competition increases. So that's known as click price inflation or CPC inflation or CPM inflation, but all of them are sort of correlated. So over time, the prices of advertising in these platforms will also increase, as we have observed with Facebook. So that's just to remind you that there is then an alternative if you want to build an audience. Nowadays, still, it's best that you get up downloads, so they download the app and you have it, they have in the phone, and they register and you have an account. So that's a real audience. Or then a little bit weaker version of that is email subscribers. So those are your sort of actual audience, because if you send email to them, they will all get it. But if you post on Facebook and you have 1 million followers, maybe 1,000 of them actually see your post. So it's like 1% versus 100%. So you get the logic, right? So if you build an audience there, it's totally rented and you can lose it at any time. But still, there are for sure, because there are opportunities to make money and be successful. Still, the idea of building an audience can be successful. I'm just saying it's precarious and it won't last forever. But while it lasts and while that audience is engaged, you are possibly you can make very, very high returns. So let's talk a little bit about these influencers. And this is really, I think, the case that I probably among the biggest ones in Finland. You also have the cleaner person who is very successful, who is cleaning apartments and making those videos. Has made millions of euros by cleaning apartments and posting about it on social media. How awesome is that? You clean apartment and you make videos and you are now a millionaire in just a few years. How awesome is that? I mean, come on. But this is even more sort of I think like innovative, because all they do is crush. So all he has is this hydraulic press and he puts different things here, mobile phones, different materials, and then in slow motion he shows how they are crushed. And again, earned millions. I don't know exactly how much, but definitely enough not to work ever again if he doesn't want, with this simple idea. So this kind of shows that as the influencer, uh, the winning niche, finding the winning niche and then repeating the same pattern as long as you can is sort of a very good business model in social media at the moment. So I've been following this person, Lauri Vuohensilta, for years now. I recommend you also follow him on LinkedIn. He also has a Finnish YouTube account as well, but in LinkedIn he sometimes posts about his insights and some of the things he has done of course, systematic posting, but he doesn't post too frequently, not to lose the audience's interest. He puts a lot of effort into concept planning, so whatever they are crushing is not just by, a whim, like spur of the moment thing, but he has analyzed it or thought it through kind of carefully. Maybe he began with kind of like, oh yeah, it might be cool, but nowadays he's very methodological about what he posts. Reviewing analytics, so in YouTube analytics, um, you have the posts, you can see the timeline when people of the retention, and from that you can see if there's a spike where people drop, for example. So that can give you an idea that your video is too long or that particular segment of the video is uninteresting for the audience. So then that helps you edit the videos better. So this type of analytics, and of course, it applies not only to influencers, but also the business users. If we do it for companies, then, we might look at how to improve their videos. And then cross-platform posting. So for example, in his case, he has the YouTube is the main channel, but he also has, I believe, TikTok, and he also has Facebook. And for Facebook, he has hired an agency to do the posting on his behalf. And then he is just basically monetizing this all from the ad programs that the revenue sharing that these social media platforms have. So that's one way of monetization for influencers, this ad revenue. There are others as well. This is from Claude the List. And so the sponsored content. It's like there's actually, if you're not really a big channel with, let's say, tens of millions of impressions, ad revenue can be too small to actually sustain a business. So you can still actually make a living or successful business out of social media posting, especially with the sponsored content. So this means that you make deals. So even if you might have relatively small audience of, I don't know, 20,000 or even 10,000, it can still be very valuable, especially if it's in niche field, like business to business. For example, I met in Venice in conference last spring, there was a Brazilian influencer, and her audience is only something like 20,000, but she makes a total living out of collaborations with medical technology, uh, like suppliers, vendors, because her audience is strictly focused on medical, this medical niche, right? So she doesn't need a big audience because the audience quality is huge, and pretty much no one else has a, health technology audience. So they don't need to have millions and millions of followers. They're interested in, the decision makers and stakeholders in that specific niche. So they can pay for post something like $20,000 or euros, and to get a video with the person or something like this. So this is can be very lucrative. Affiliate marketing is when influencers post a link there, and the link is leading, for example, to Amazon. And when a person makes the purchase, a commission is given to the influencer or content creator. Yeah, then there are subscription systems as well nowadays. You can follow people and pay money with them, and that can generate revenue. That's a major business nowadays online. You also have long-term collaboration, so this kind of advocacy. I mentioned employee advocacy, but you also have these brand ambassadors or brand advocates, and you make, for example, a yearly contract that includes a certain number of content of different types, and then the influencer just follows that, and the brand monitors the results. And then there are other ways as well, like speaking in events and having these fees, selling some products like ebooks or training courses, things like that. Many people that become successful at something then also further monetize the knowledge that helped them to to become successful. Like Lauri could now do this hydraulic pump is so popular, and he can make a video course on how to make it big on YouTube or something, and then sell it for 500 euros or whatever, and I'm sure he would make a lot of revenue from that as well. And then consulting, coaching, that would be more tailored to specific individuals or organizations. Again, Lauri could go to even any big company in Finland and consult them on how they can become more successful in YouTube um, content production. And as I mentioned, the ads part of that is based on revenue sharing. So the logic is the same as with the App Store, for example, where Apple shares the revenue with developers. So in the ads market is the same with the social media platforms. So YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch, for example, and pretty much all of them, they have revenue sharing mechanisms, and they're slightly different in terms of percentages and how they work. But there's also the there's also the competitive dimension here, that these platforms have a very strong incentive to make it lucrative for influencers, especially bigger influencers, uh, to participate. So in the case of YouTube, they have the AdSense program, which is Google's publisher program that actually covers all Google's network, also the display network. You can join as a publisher, and then they pay you revenue if you are showing the ads. And again, based on impressions, they are paying some of that money that they get from advertisers to you. Then they have there's a tiered system for YouTube. You have to have a certain number of views to be included in the ads program, and then if you surpass, so that's just to be included. But then if you generate a lot, and then you might get like a personal sort of account manager there and more special like treatment from YouTube, because you are considered more important member of the community. And so major part of this is competition. So all of this content, the user generated content, is free for the platforms, but people have the choice to choose not to publish in a platform. So that's why, of course, the platforms want to have the biggest influencers on them, because then they can get more advertisers' interest and so on. So this is the network effects idea. And many creators can exploit this by doing what we call multi-homing, just that we can post in many platforms and basically repurpose the same content, make shorter, longer versions, and then therefore, we get 10 million views from TikTok and 1 million views from YouTube, and now it's 11 together. So in a way, it kind of makes sense. And yeah, this is the interesting phenomena of our age, and has clearly like exploded since I started teaching digital marketing. So it has become a sort of like a livelihood, and also a way for people to become financially independent and rich by just making content on social media. That's sort of quite quite interesting, and we can understand it because of what has happened there's extremely low barriers of publishing content. The hardware for producing videos has become really, really good. The quality is really, really good. Software has become really, really nice. You can easily edit videos even in online, whereas maybe 10 years ago it was very difficult and we needed a dedicated software which was expensive and difficult to use. So all these barriers of producing quality content have gone down, and at the same time the demand has exploded because of these addiction factors, that people are they are glued to the smartphone, and the total number of hours that, for example, Finnish people spend on social media, it's just so many millions per year that it just means that there is so much money in the system, because this attention is being monetized, and then who captures the attention will be most successful. Okay, so we have different influencers from a corporate point of view. The classic way of viewing this was micro and macro influencers, but I noticed this more granular taxonomy that the AI generated, and I included it here because I think it's very interesting and it sort of makes sense that I hadn't seen it before. But the idea is sort of very valid. So you have nano influencers that are very small influencers, and collaboration with them is very cheap. So maybe you pay them 10 euro or up to 100 euro, and they have few followers, but then you might try to get a lot of these nano influencers, and especially if it's a tight niche, this could be very profitable. Then you have micro influencers with 10 to 100,000, and now it costs 100 to 500 dollars per post. And yeah, and so it goes forward. You have mid tier, which is again bigger, and then you have go to the macro influencer, 500,000 to 1 million influencer, and now maybe the average is something like 10,000 dollars per post. And then you got the mega influencers that have more than 1 million followers. And again, the prices increase. Now you might even have to pay $1 million dollars for a post. And then even above those, you have the celebrity influencers like Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi or Taylor Swift, and those could then charge more than $1 million dollar per post on a regular basis. So yeah, this is a very interesting, I think, stratification of the level of popularity dictating the prices in the system, and also it's kind of showing you that okay, most companies need to operate here in the nano to mid-tier influencers because they simply cannot afford to collaborate with the um, macro to celebrity influencers. It's just too expensive. But that's fine. So we know that this influencer marketing is flexible strategy, and it can start from very small, but it can also scale very big. And of course, individual countries actually might have, I think this is more of a US based, these numbers, but in Finland we can have a little bit more modest numbers already bring you to the macro influencer class. And like mentioned, if it's a specific niche thing, like with the health technology, we don't need so many. This is more of like for consumer marketing, where we just assume that we want the interest of general public. But if we have something that is very niche, and especially in B2B, then smaller audiences can be sort of equally valuable, because in consumer marketing, the average purchase is maybe, I don't know, 20, 50, maybe 100 or up to 1,000 euros, right? But not much before above that. Maybe in cars, okay, car is 20,000, 30 nowadays, or 40 if it's electric. But in B2B, individual sales can be, something like health technology. okay, they buy, so then they start from like 100,000 euro and then they go into millions. So those are big deals. And that's why, to, they need fewer customers than, and they have fewer customers that could even buy that. So the numbers, of course, will be smaller in B2B audience and B2B influencers. And then how do we calculate return on investment for this type of activity for companies? Well, it's just like calculating return on investment for anything. So we need to know the returns, how much we get return, and then investment, so the cost, how much we spend. So costs we know generally, because if we make an influencer deal, it's very easy to determine or know that, okay, this costed now 20,000 euro, this collaboration, let's say on a yearly basis with some of these micro influencers. And then the harder part is to track, harder part is to get the data on the performance. And this is something where some of the social media agencies, like in Finland, we have the Truth agency, which is the leading influencer and maybe even leading social media marketing agency. It's very nice to Truth agency. They make very nice posts and they share knowledge about this. So they're focused on CPA. They're now trying to get the the metrics of for the performance, the actual performance for the brands, because obviously brands are interested in how much actually then their sales would increase and so on and so on. But that can be really difficult, and it can require some tactics like using coupon codes, or like these affiliate links, or so coupon code is that the influencer has a distinct code, and then you go into the buying and then you insert the code there and then you get a discount. But the real purpose is to get information that, okay, your conversion was driven by this influencer. So some creative techniques might be needed to get the actual value, but it also depends on what is the purpose. If we are more into this visibility, then it's easier to know how much visibility a post brought us and how many likes and comments. These type of metrics are easier to calculate because we can get them directly from the platforms. But it's harder to get the conversions. Of course, in the links also, we can use UTM, universal tagging. So that means basically adding parameters to the link that then indicate to Google Analytics the source. So the parameter itself can, for example, read the it can be a campaign parameter, and it can have the influencer's name. So then if someone buys while clicking that link from the Google Analytics reports, we should be able to see that it's now the purchase has been made through this influencer. So there are some ways for the tracking, but none of those are completely foolproof. And it can be challenging to track the influencer marketing performance. Okay, then yeah, social media optimization is one of the key things. Well, whether we're influencer or company, getting that attention, some ideas or thoughts on that, like well, unfortunately or not, it's like very attention oriented. So the competition is just so high for this attention because of the low cost of generating content and posting it. And so it's just nowadays, even with the videos, it's really less than a second that you have to catch the attention. And then if you're in YouTube, for example, the headline the preview images need to be very attention grabbing. So if you look at the professional influencers, you can see how they are having, the facial expressions and everything. It's directly human psychology that you display some emotion like, oh, and then it just grabs the attention of the person. That's the only thing. It's a human psychology. We recognize a face, we recognize an emotion, and out of all these competing preview images, we focus on the one that shows that emotion, and then we are more likely to click it. So it's kind of like, it's on the one hand, it's annoying because it's like tricking a person, right? It's like we try to go into these primitive instincts and trick, you know, use the cognitive theory to trick a person and sort of like manipulate them. But it is, what it is. So if we want to be successful and if we want to gain visibility, we have to do this thing because our competitor is doing, and that's the thing that we have to do. But yeah, indeed, so understanding human psychology and cognitive psychology, in particular how people process information, how they view information, and but also analytic skills, so systematic testing, um, systematic monitoring of what others do and what works in that field. So yeah, there's a reason why they have, why the content that's appearing top on our feeds is the top content. There's a reason for it. We need to analyze what it is, and then we need to use, maybe make hypothesis that, okay, this type of thing works. If I make my face like this, now I will catch more. So then we have to test it, and then we have to record the results of the testing. Oh, okay, yeah, it didn't work actually. I need to try something else. Or it did work. Okay, let me do more of it. So this is the kind of the optimization mindset of generating ideas or hypotheses and then testing them and recording the results and then making conclusions and decisions whether to scale or kill an idea. And it is extremely challenging for companies because of a couple of things. Number one, people are interested in people and not companies. And so in social media, content about and from real people, authentic people, is always by default has sort of like a structural advantage over company generated content. And there could be some brands that people really love and would actually see the brand's content. But those are, let's say, outlier or exception cases. For an average brand, they can't really beat person to person interaction. They cannot be more interesting than a person. And the second challenge here is that um, this company content is produced by peop people who do it as their job, right? It's not their passion. Usually, it's just a job, right? I'm doing it from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, and then I go home and okay, I posted one post today. Nah, 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 nah. Okay, maybe I made some effort and the post was nice, right? It was nice. Okay, I spent time planning it. Really, I made my best. But at the end of the day, it's my job, and I will go home and then I will do the actual things I really care about. So compare this to influencers. So usually influencers are they're just obsessed with the content. So they're working around it on it around the clock, 24/7. And they are really doing all the tricks. They're checking the computer. They're turning every rock to become successful. So a regular company employee cannot do that. They have other tasks. They have meetings. You know, and then also they're prevented by the fact that the company has brand safety guidelines. So okay, maybe you have a radical idea that okay, this might be super, your boss says, no, that's too risky. We cannot. We get canceled, or some of our audience doesn't like it. So you have to make more neutral content, and that will be more boring, and it will not get you a competitive edge. So this is the publishing department maxim, that you need to have a publishing house or publishing department of people, videographers, photographers, content designers. You need to turn into a publishing house to compete with people that are spending all their time to get the attention in social media. As a regular company, if you have one person doing, oh, I made a post, I made a plan, how can you expect to compete with someone who's giving it all they got? It's like you putting in a boxing ring someone very amateur against a professional boxer. You will get knocked down every time, and there's no way you can expect anything different. Like, but still many companies follow this strategy that they just do some posting, and then they even spend time on it, and then look at the results, it's nothing. And often it's nothing because of also this winner take all dynamics, that either your content goes big and sort of goes to the feed, and then it gets a lot of exposure, or pretty much nobody sees it, right? It's a winner take all. Either you're successful or then you're nothing. And most content by companies are nothing. It has it has really no effect, unless then if it's boosted by advertising, where you can actually get some kind of reach for it. So uh, this is to say, this is the publishing department maxim, that to compete really against influencers, and you have to be willing to go in big. And if you're not, then maybe you don't need to even try to compete. And instead of a person posting there, they could do something more productive with their day. So, but it will never happen because somebody heard that we have to be in social media. So that's, they just have to do something, right? But it will be insignificant. There's so much clutter, so much competition in social media that you can put 10 hours of someone's work into that, but it's nothing. You need to put thousands of hours into joint team work to actually make it. Otherwise, really, yeah, the results will be poor. So here is one example of people being more interested in other people. So here is the Mikko Hyppönen, who is or was, I'm not sure if he still is, chief research officer at F-Secure. So he has the double of number, or had probably now more, this a bit old picture, double the amount of followers than F-Secure. So it's just, even in business, audiences care more about people than the actual company. So people are more interesting in social media than companies in general. Okay, so yeah, some more challenges. Companies also struggle to show personality. There's a good example of doing this, like, kind of, let's say, not being afraid, is a Finnish company called Varusteleka, especially the early days. That's how the company grew into, and then later the owner sold it and again was very successful, making an exit. But a key component in the success was actually marketing communication, and it was based on the very um, uh, communication with personality and kind of like witty, sarcastic humor this Varusteleka posts had in social media. So they gained a lot of attention, and this company became sort of like a role model in Finland, at least in the e-commerce sector, on how to do social advertising, social media marketing correctly. But most companies are just kind of shackled by their fear of making mistakes. But on the other hand, we can also understand that because social media is very brutal place nowadays. Really, you can get cancelled very easily. You say the wrong thing, you upset, and actually, it often is a smart strategy not to say anything really, because it can be misunderstood and somebody can get their feelings hurt. And this is the environment nowadays. So it's understandable that we have this strategy of being very kind of scared to be different. But at the same time, it is a limiting factor, and it does mean that in an environment where you need to be different, you need to be bold, and you need to have something um, that grabs the attention, then this kind of thinking of let's be average, let's be, you know, uh, down to earth and so on, it's just not compatible with the success factors in social media. So unfortunately, this culture or mindset that most companies have, especially in the corporate sphere, where decision making is often characterized by an attempt to avoid making mistakes. So that drives hugely corporate decision makers' behavior, even though they claim always the opposite, that they are innovative, na na na. But if you go there, yeah, really, nobody wants to sign because they're afraid of making a mistake, right? So they always pass the ball to someone else, and they prefer attending meetings, but actually when yeah, they don't like to do generally risky things. They like to keep their jobs and avoid making mistakes and just sort of fit in. That's the usual case um, and that's my opinion, but based on what I've seen, but also what I've heard from others. So this kind of mentality can really, corporativism can really hurt your success abilities in social media. And yeah, just as a general guideline, that in marketing we have to be bold, and we have to also be ready to upset some people. Basically, the idea of targeting is that we cannot please everyone. That should never be our goal. We need to find our audience, and then we need to please them. So they provide us the business, and the others we don't really much need to care about because they're not our um, target market. So keep this principle in mind. And here's a sort of a tip also at, let's say, personal level social media marketing. So kind of like an idea of, okay, because I said, that it's that the posts that appear at the top of our streams sort of appear good, and there's a reason why they're at the top, because they are good, right? So they are performing well. But then what makes them good? Okay, we have to think and we have to try and analyze. So here's just an idea how you can try to, for example, if you want to increase your own reach in LinkedIn, you can um, analyze this post. So analyze 30 posts, and as soon as you can see one post having a lot of likes and comments, you can, again, something you put into Excel, it becomes manageable, it becomes analyzable, you can see things. So instead of just looking, oh yeah, maybe this has this and that, no, just put it in Excel, put 30 of those in Excel, and then make another column there, write your what you think makes this post, what made it do well in the other column, and then read it again. Oh, okay, I can see some patterns here that seems like these posts that are doing well have these common themes. Okay, so then you can now think that, okay, aha, let me try to implement. So those common themes become your hypothesis that if I apply this tactic, I will my posts also will become more successful. So then you can try. You can make another Excel sheet, and I apply this tactic 1, tactic 2, tactic 3, and you posted it on Monday, and on Wednesday you see how many likes and comments you get. You can count that, and then you just repeat doing this, and then over time you can see that, oh yeah, I found that these tactics that really seem to be increasing likes and comments, and okay, I should keep doing them. And these others were kind of like red herrings, that they actually seemed important, but they really didn't work for in my tests. Um, so yeah, this is just an example of how you can sort of generate information by trying to look past what you see and try to analyze it. And you don't need to analyze thousands of posts. You can start with 30 and get some indication already. I guarantee you you will generate a lot of diverse ideas from 30 even. And maybe we should do this as a weekly task. Let's see, I didn't decide yet. Okay, so then we have another personal social media marketing case. This is from the kind of an older one, but I think it's a very nice one, and it also embodies some concepts like let's say integrated marketing communications in the way, which means that we have the brand, in this case the person, the person and her pictures appearing in different venues, and kind of the look and feel is always the same. This is a nice, I think, example. But yeah, there's this Mona Markkanen, and she wanted to find a job. So she made a recruiting campaign on social media. And this is something you could also do if you want. But at the time, yeah, she posted about it actively on Twitter. She created a Pinterest CV. She made a special landing page, and then she did a bunch of LinkedIn optimization. So let's take a look. So the Twitter campaign, yeah, she posted here. She had, hashtags, information, linking to social media. So cross-linking your profiles. Nice picture, relevant. So she was looking for digital marketing job. Okay, I can already spoil it. She got it. She got a nice one, and has been progressing in her career ever since in digital marketing. Yeah, and she posted with relevant hashtags. She had visual CV in Pinterest with different diplomas and different achievements that she had done. Again, giving a nice impression. Oh yeah, she's making an effort, and she has a lot of enthusiasm on this field. She created this about using about.me, just landing page, very easy to create, with relevant keywords, bolded here, information, and then again links to LinkedIn, Pinterest, and then also traditional CV. Yeah, her own hashtag with the campaign. And finally in LinkedIn, so again the same picture, and then similar keywords, and good description, again with using a lot of keywords that mention specific tools and specific skills that she has, and then what she's interested in, availability, and then contact details directly here. So leaving a low barrier of contacting her. So yeah, this is this how okay, so yeah, this was successful, and she was hired to Parsero, Turku-based social digital marketing company. And yeah, you can view especially LinkedIn as an important search engine in the professional context. So this how social media and search are sort of overlapping. And as you can recall, last week we discussed about how everything that has search is a search engine. So LinkedIn has a search, and you should definitely, now that, well, now you are students, but as you are progressing to professional careers, you should you should keep the LinkedIn updated and really actually trust the power of keywords. So make sure that the keywords that people who are looking for people in your field would use in LinkedIn are included in your profile. So starting from the title to your description, because yeah, this affects just your ability of being found. I have some friends that stay all the time get recruiting offers from LinkedIn, and recruiters use this search box to find people specific expertise, and then they contact them. So it actually works. And yeah, I have this chaos theory because it has really worked for me as well. Like the e-commerce case that I consulted came from the fact that I just included in Facebook the that I had studied marketing in Turku School of Economics. That's the only reason, right? So if I didn't put that, the person who was searching using Facebook search function would not have found me. It would have found someone else, and I would be doing maybe something different now. So the chaos theory is that at any given point in time, people are looking for others in social media. And if you want to maximize your opportunities, use the keywords to your advantage. Kind of be active in social media, and uh, that's just, kind of like a game theoretic optimal strategy there, because that's what you can do. You can include the keywords, you can be, well, you need to profile yourself well, that make sure you understand what are the keywords you are interested in. And then also you need to know the keywords that people use to search for others in those fields. So whether it's digital marketing or analytics or something else, then you need to use those. And really, yeah, this is how it often works. And it's interesting. We indeed have people, like I know some people, they've never applied for a job. They either got everything from social media or from connections. So yeah, it really has a big power when it comes to your personal um, branding and visibility, and like your future as well. So yeah, but that's it. Do you have any questions or